again. Um, thank you, Flavio and Carlie, for joining us in this conversation today about The Garden Left Behind. Flavio, it's nice to see you again. Flavio had the courtesy to join one of my classes last semester virtually when we had to cancel our original festival, and now we've rescheduled it to be virtual, so I appreciate that. And I need to thank a few of our funders a second. I want to thank Embrace Western New York, a local LGBT beneficent society. I want to thank the Academic Affairs at Canisius College, Campus Ministry, and the Office of Mission and Identity, and various departments, including Modern Languages, Sociology, Art History, the library, and of course, my technical wizard in all of this, Corey Chervin, who is my research assistant. So I want to thank everybody for helping make this happen. Since this is a film being shown as part of our Borders and Migrations initiative, I'd like to maybe start with asking both of you, Flavio and Carlie, to talk about either your personal or your family history in terms of how you have ended up here in the United States.
Carlie?
Your story is much more fun than mine. I was just born here.
I can go first if you want.
Yeah, you go.
Okay. Yes. I came to the US in 1998 after I wrote a book in 1997 back in Brazil about gays in the military, and then I came to America, and then I was granted asylum in 1998, a year later after I arrived, and that's how I arrived in the States, like I don't know, 25 years ago, and yeah.
Have you ever gone back to Brazil?
I went there once, but it was a special occasion. I'm not supposed to, and actually, when I came to America, they destroyed my passport, so I was a stateless person for a while. So while I was seeking asylum, the United Nations gave me what they call refugee travel document. That was the only document I had at that point. And so I could go to a few countries, but I could not go back to my country. But since I'm a Brazilian citizen, I fought after I was granted asylum. Of course, I fought to get my citizenship back, because not that I had to get it back, I just to get the right to have my own passport, Brazilian passport. So eventually I got it. So anyway, so I have both citizenship, the Brazilian and the US citizenship.
Okay. So you're a dual citizen now, then?
Yeah, I am.
And Carlie, you were born in New York then?
Yeah, I was born in New York, and both of my parents are from El Salvador, and both emigrated here in the late 1980s.
Oh, okay. And have you or your parents gone back to El Salvador?
Yes, to both. My dad was deported and died in El Salvador 2 years ago. And my mom, I think she went back like 5 years ago, and I went back like 6 or 7 years ago to see my dad when he was still there.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm very sorry about your father's story.
Me too.
I've been to El Salvador once or twice now. I can't remember. It's quite lovely.
Oh, wow.
I mean, geographically lovely. I know
what's
going on at the moment.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed my time there. So Flavio, I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the genesis of this film. What motivated it? Where did you get the idea for the film?
Well, the galley behind is about a woman trying to move forward with her life. That's the best way to simplify the story. And well, I started working on this film in 2015 with my screenwriter John Rotondo, and then so we started doing research with the trans community, and we brought several of them to work with us and to be part of the process of putting the story together. And so at that point, I met Christian Parker, who's now one of our producers. and she helped to shape the story of Tina, but also even the testimonies I collected for the past while I was doing my research in 2016 and 2015, 2016, all those testimonies, they helped to actually even to build the story. I mean, the dialogue, and it was a sort of a documentary style. That's pretty much the way we, that's how we see the film, and it just happened to be a fiction story, but keep in mind that all those testimonies, helped us to build the story. So everything you see in a film are things that we heard from the trans community, and that's how we got this film done.
I read somewhere in I think one of the interviews that you had 50 trans people participating in different areas of the film.
Yeah, we have around between 48 and 50, trans men and trans women who work with us in various capacities, not only in front of the camera, but also behind the camera. And the reason for that is because we want them to be the next generation of filmmakers. Now we want them to be able to be in control of their own narratives, and the way to do it is to train them, so that eventually they can get to the director's chair. And that was the idea behind of bringing them to work with us and behind the camera. And so we not only had them helping us to shape the story, but after we wrote the script, inviting them to come to work with us and be part of the process of work on a set, work with actors, and so that it could eventually inspire them to become filmmakers as well.
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah, to give them the power to tell the stories directly.
Yeah.
So, Carlie, how did you get involved with this project?
I had a friend of mine that I worked with who we met in like the art world. I used to work in museums, and that was still is my jam. And she just, I mean, I don't have social media, and so she happened to have Facebook, and she saw the post. And from what I understand, it was very hard to find trans actors and actresses. And so they were looking, and she sent it to me, and I just loved the script. I didn't feel uncomfortable in any way, and I felt very like I knew Tina. I just felt super comfortable with her story, and felt like some connection with her. And it was like, okay, I like the story. I'm gonna go try this out. I've never in my whole life I've ever like auditioned for anything. I've never acted before, and like, what's the worst that can happen? Let's go do something, fun and exciting and new. And it just worked out. Flavio liked it.
So this is your very first film.
Yeah, it is.
So I have to ask you then, what was it like working with a seasoned actor like Ed Asner?
Oh, he's great. He was fantastic. Both Ed, Michael Madsen, um, yeah, other actors on set who have experience just made it so much more easier, and the process just flowed, and I was able to learn a lot from them watching them on set. To see also how like comfortable they were. It was really special. I mean, there's a scene with Bernadette, who plays a doctor in the film, and she had some acting experience already, and so I had to cry, and her energy sort of just fed my energy, and it really helped because I know Flavio wanted me to cry, and I locked myself in the bathroom for like 5 minutes, and he's like, I need you to cry, and I was like, I don't know if it's gonna happen. I went to the bathroom for like 5 minutes, and then I didn't know if it was gonna happen, but Bernadette and I created this energy, and it flowed. So I'm forever thankful for everyone who
I think you were terrific. I'm sorry, you just nail it. Amazing.
So Flavio, I have to ask you, as the director, how was it directing a first-time actress?
Well, there are good and the bad things about that experience, and let's start with the bad things, because it's very unpredictable. You don't know how they will react, and usually someone with lots of experience, they know how to access emotions, etc., etc. So it's easy to work with them, and especially when you're under pressure, and me as a director, I I face a lot of pressure that comes from everywhere, and especially financial pressure, to finish the film on time, under the budget, So work with actors that don't have that experience, it's difficult to communicate with them and for them to understand, what's how it really functions. The good thing about work with them is because they are the fabric of the story. If you want to make a film that is authentic, that's the way to go. And again, it was not an easy process, but I think I think it worked pretty well, and not only with Carlie, but we had so many other, we had a really good team, I call my girls, because they were just amazing, they're very supportive, to each other, so it was incredible experience working with them, I was also a little bit concerned with my producers because for them it's just like now how are we going to do it, what if you can't deliver that, what's going to happen, and you are bringing to the table actors without experience, but at the end I think everyone understood that it was the only way to get it done.
So changing topics a little bit here, something that may be lost on uh, English only speaker viewers of the film is the language shifts with the grandmother, and Tina, and the not just in the use of whether it's Antonio or Tina, but also in the pronouns being used or the masculine or feminine endings to adjectives or things like that. And I wonder, Carlie or Flavio, either one of you, if you could speak to that a little bit and how that worked itself in the film.
Carlie?
Well, I think that it was very honest. It's just a very honest portrayal of the process that a family member has to go through with embracing someone's identity. That could be as simple as you change your name. Like, let's say you were born with a name you don't like and you change it, and them having to remember, your new chosen name. I think it was just super nuanced and just super powerful to see the abuela do that, and especially because Spanish is a gendered language in terms of different words. Um, it showed the real process that my family members have gone through, and people that I know to how to communicate with us and how to talk to us now that you want to be seen in a different way. So it's just very loving, and I think it shows the inner struggle, the turmoil, or let's say whatever the transition that the grandma herself is going through. So knowing Antonio is one way, and then finally coming to know Tina as who she is, and understanding that there's a whole process in that, and changing the language and how you relate to each other.
We had a lot of discussion. We had a lot of discussion, especially with Christian, which is our producer. She's a trans woman. So I had that question, for her, like, how can we make this transition from a dead name? That's how the name that the grandma knew Tina now as Antonio, the dead name to the chosen name. So. We realized that not just Carlie, that her personal story, but that was the experience. That's what I heard from almost everyone that I interviewed for this film. But to make the transition a film that in a way that people could connect with it, the audience could understand, and it was not an easy thing, So then we thought, like, okay, we need an arc here, the beginning, so that people understand how they perceive each other now, and both the granddaughter and the grandmom, and then toward the ending, when she fully accept Tina, now, and so we need that arc, the struggle in the beginning, and at the end, then she's embracing Tina as a female, as the granddaughter, and that was it was a challenge for us, but uh, I was glad that it came out the way it did, so I'm glad.
No, definitely. I think it works. And I think it's interesting linguistically how there's an evolution in the language that the
Yeah.
grandmother uses that I find really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Related to that, there's a question from our chat. And it's related to the questions of gender and identity, but also in terms of Latino. And they're wondering if you could share your perspectives on terms like Latinx versus Latino and what you might use to identify yourself. And I know this is a very complicated debate, but more from your own personal experience.
Carlie, I think
Okay. Yeah, I personally would use Latina, just because I grew up with that distinction of, female is Latina, male is Latino, and Latinx is a relatively new thing. And for a while I didn't know much about what it meant until I researched it further, and it's sort of this new ground of not prescribing gender to words, and it goes even more than that into different words that are used in Spanish. And so, yeah, I hope that answers your question in terms of how I personally identify. I do think it's an interesting push, just because of the way that Spanish is. I mean, the language is just built that way. I don't know if Brazilian Portuguese is. But French is the same way too, there's so many things where a word like a car, in Spanish, el carro, you're not going to say, la carro, or el sol. So there's just so many words that are just the backbone of the language has to do with gender. And so I just find that it's very interesting and exciting in terms of how it can develop to move away from gender in a way that English is. It's definitely can be a challenge.
Okay.
I'm still like transitioning, and because for a long time that's the term that the only term I knew, Latino, Latina, and but I understand that, as Carlie said, and there is a need for that, and so I can go both ways, and but Latinx, I believe it should be, it's more appropriate nowadays,
It's interesting because I've watched this debate sort of grow over the last couple of decades, because it used to be the arroba sign, the at sign. You had the A inside the O, and I remember that. And there was also a moment of using like the letter E to sort of be gender neutral. So it's interesting how there's these constant linguistic evolutions to try to address gender diversity. So related to that, there's another question about how the trans community discusses the inherent gender of the Spanish language. And Carlie, I think you already sort of talked about this a little bit. And whether that, how does that inform a worldview? I don't know if you want to elaborate on that at all.
These are some good questions. How does that inform a worldview and the whole development of, let's say, Latinx and the gender neutral-ish way of language? I think whether you're someone growing up in a Spanish-speaking household or French, whatever cultural background that you're coming from, that is using a language that is gendered, it's going to influence a lot of, one, the way you see the world, right? But then two, how you see yourself. And so when your family members, at some point, specifically when it has to do transition in terms of gender transition, right? So being trans, there's going to be a process of understanding. I mean, even for me, it's weird to talk about, and I never do. So this is a cool question. It's a process even when you describe yourself, right? So, maybe at some point in your life, I speak Spanish at home, and so maybe my inner monologue would be to describe myself as serious, let's say. But I had never used serious in a female form, right? So I would never describe myself as seria. And so there are words that if you don't use them, right, maybe at some point you slip up and or something, and you're like serio, or it could be anything so trivial. But the point is that there's a process even for you to reevaluate and reconstruct how you define yourself, not in the English brain, but also in the gender language brain, which, you know, would be whatever language you're using, like Spanish or French. Just because you don't use all the gendered words that are available every day like you do in English, and because English is just already, serious is serious no matter what.
Right. Flavio, do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, I think Carlie. No, I don't have. I think Carlie actually covered everything. You know?
I wonder, sort of related to that though, if you feel you are different when you are engaging with the world in English versus in Portuguese or in Spanish.
Do you want to take a shot at it, Flavia?
Actually, for some, I have seen some of my friends, Brazilian friends who have lived here. They struggle with that. Actually, I blend pretty well, and I don't see. Yeah, I still have an accent. You can tell. But actually, I I don't see. I don't see the difference, and I just don't, I don't know about you, Carly. Your case is a little different because you were born here, but yeah, I don't just don't feel, and I don't know if I answer your question properly, but
Yeah, I mean,
I think. Uh-huh.
Oh, look, Carlie has a.
Sorry, I have someone who is apparently wanting to be here. I think if I could interject briefly, I think for me, I do feel different in terms of whether it is Spanish or English. On a very superficial and immediate level, I know that in English, it's weird to say, but I mean, it's even part of the movie, right? So I do have my voice down in English, obviously, and I feel very comfortable with that. But since I don't speak Spanish all the time, especially use it at home, I feel like it's more easy to clock me in Spanish than it is in English. So there is a level of like trying to fem it up when I am talking Spanish, which I shouldn't really care about, but it's been a progression in terms of finding my own voice in Spanish in the same way that I found my own voice in English. So there was a big difference for me, and for a while, if I wanted to, to stay passable or stay stealth, whatever, whenever I'm interacting with someone, maybe I would not speak Spanish, even if I knew, they did and that I did too. I'd just, respond in English or something.
Wow. Actually, that's super fascinating, Carlie. Thank you for sharing that. I'm fascinated by how the language we speak sometimes can affect how we present and how we identify in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question from chat, and this is for Flavio. How did you learn about the issues surrounding the LGBT plus community?
Well, I'm a gay man myself, and I think being a gay man is such an important part of who I am, and because I for many years when I came to the US, I felt that I was an outsider. Maybe not only because I'm a gay man, but also because I'm a Latino, and I felt that I needed to actually, when I became a filmmaker, to express myself in those terms, to be able to tell stories that reflect my experience, because this way I could, and I was very concerned about misrepresentation, because that's pretty much how I felt when I saw the American movies in the 80s, back in Brazil, and today I'm glad that I'm in a position to make an impact on that front, by telling stories that not only reflect my experience, but also the experience of so many other people who felt they were silenced, so I want to keep telling stories not only about LGBT, but all kinds of stories about marginalized communities, and today is a story about Tina, but tomorrow is a story about someone else, but it's always about marginalized communities, and I want to keep telling those stories, because those are the things that actually take me out of my bed to keep working, and I feel that there is this, there is an urgency to keep telling stories about communities that don't often see themselves on the big screen, you know.
Right. We have another question. How did either of you go about finding yourselves and who you were in cultures that are very set in how they view gender?
Just for
Well, for both of you, but
Carlie?
if you want to tackle this one first.
Okay, so how did I find myself in a culture that is very traditional, conservative when it comes to gender? To be honest, it's a very blunt answer, and I want to curse, but now my mind is like, don't cuss. Basically, sorry.
It's all right if you want to cuss.
I think there has to be a level of I don't give a fuck when it comes to and in terms of other people. You have to give no fucks to other people, and it has to be that explicit in terms of, when I've just been describing the trans experience lately, I can only speak for myself, but I know that starting the transition, I understood that I was risking everything, and I was okay with that. I'm okay losing, loved ones or family members, et cetera, friends, maybe not having a job ever again, maybe being killed at some point in the street. Everything I was okay with because the reward or the payoff for the risk was worth it to me, to make that risk. So I think anyone who is in a culture where it's very conservative, and it doesn't even have to be gender, it could be career, just terms of expressions, aesthetic, it could be fashion. You have to have a level of disregard and follow what it is that you're going to do, because otherwise, I would not be Carlie today, and that would suck. So you got to say fuck him.
But actually, to Carl's point, but also I feel that depends where you are, your social class, because if you happen to be a trans white woman living in LA, working like in a big corporation, I mean, it really doesn't really matter as much as opposed to for someone like Tina living in the Bronx, and that she has to live with. There are so much transphobia everywhere, and that surrounded her, and so there is definitely a difference, and it all depends, and that's the reason why actually we made the film the way we did, and the film takes place in the Bronx, and it's a lot more tougher for someone living in that neighborhood. And now there are a lot less misunderstanding. There is a lot of social stigma surrounding the transgender issues, and then I thought that it was a perfect place to tell the story, so also people could understand now how vulnerable those lives are, how cheap those lives are in those places, and so again, and this depends where you live, your social class, and it's
That's why I think what's so appealing about Tina's story is that there are so many levels of being an outsider, right? Mm-hmm. Not living with her grandmother, being trans, but then also being sort of thwarted in developing that identity, being an immigrant, being more financially precarious. I mean, there's all these sorts of levels that she has to explore, and I think that's what's so dynamic about her story.
But if you say something as small as the activism, and not every trans person faces the same experience, and again, there are different layers, there are different things that plays a role, and for Tina, she just wants to live her life just like any other woman, and but for her, she was forced to engage in activism, because it was a matter of survival. So I trying to, in different ways, try to bring those little things to life, not in a big way, but in a way that, in a subtle way, that people could understand, and the differences, and I don't know. I hope I had like 5 hours film, so I could, cover and get in depth even more, and when you only have limitations, 1 hour and 30 minutes, to tell a story, there are a lot of challenges, and
I found that interesting in the film. Tina's um, progression towards activism. Like there was a reluctance there, and so Carlie, I have mixed up the character and the actors there.
Okay.
But to that point, though, Carlie, do you consider yourself an activist?
I do want to say with Flavio's point, yeah, it matters where you are. Just briefly, not to negate any privilege that anyone can have living, in a country where a person generally makes X amount of money, or that you have the freedoms to do as you wish. But I still believe, and it's a hill I would die on, that I think that the act of transitioning is you're gambling it all, because you don't know anything what's going to happen afterwards. There's hormones involved, there's a change, there's the uncertainty whether it would be something, to what level will you feel complete and satisfied. And so it's a gamble for everything, that many people make, whether you're here in El Salvador, Mexico, etc. So I think, I don't know why it's important for me to bring that point, but I just think that it's important to know that a lot of women do that gamble. And so your question in terms of activism, I feel very similar to Tina in terms of I am not very politically or engaged in any sort of activism. I've seen my way of being involved as living my life and being able to be in spaces where maybe trans women aren't usually seen. And so that for me would extend to the fine art world. And that to me was power in itself. Like I had a performance where I went to Art Basel, dressed very flamboyantly and like showing off that I was trans. And obviously Art Basel is not like the most conservative place in the world, but there are spaces where trans women maybe aren't in the room. And I think my way of activism and what I enjoy is trying to get into that room and say, hey, we're here. And like, the door will then be open for any other girl or man who would like to come into that room.
Yeah, no, I thank you for that perspective, Carl. I think that's a good point. I think that activism can take many forms. And I think it's worth valuing that too. We have another question from the chat. Have there been instances where either of you had to overcome adversity in regards to gender or sexuality?
Actually, something, I find it to be, I take it as a challenge, every time I face like a roadblock, when someone tells me like, you just can't do it, and that's a good reason for me to actually do just that, and I try to, I take it as a challenge, as opposed to sit and cry like, oh, poor thing, I just can't have it because for whatever reasons, some group don't want me to have because they just don't think I deserve it. I know I'm gonna fight for it, and that's for everything I do in life, and I was for many years in politics, and if you want to be a politician, that's what you have to do, you have to fight because, and you're gonna face a lot of roadblocks, and the same thing goes for film, anything in life, and nothing was handled to me easily. I had to fight and I take it, and so and that's why I think the story of Tina is interesting, even for Carlie, it's just like it's like demanding their rights instead of asking, because if you ask, people will not give it to you. You have to demand, you have to take it, and but I see that as something that actually it's a good thing, because every time I prove that I could do it, as opposed to despite all the opposition, and actually it makes me stronger, and it doesn't stop me from trying, you know, and I think that's what I love about the challenges, you know. And
What about you, Carlie?
You know, I've been, sorry, I stopped the video. Sorry. I've been very fortunate in terms of not facing, I would say, like explicit. I mean, I'm taking it as like explicit violent aggression in terms of how Tina had it, but in terms of the way Flavio is framing it also, I haven't really at any point in my life that I can say distinctively experience pushback or any sort of obstacle because of either being trans or liking men. I just haven't. So I think I'm in the same camp as Flavio. If I ever did feel anything like that, it would just give me more reason to push back in terms of, well, why not? You know, I want it.
I think that's a healthy way to look at it. Absolutely. Yeah. We have another question here. What piece of advice would you give to a young teen or college student who is unsure of themselves and their identity and might be questioning whether or not to transition, or someone who does not have a support system and must be secretive about their dysphoria and their family? So very heavy questions here.
That's a very difficult question, and I don't know if I have an answer for you because unfortunately, I have friends as well that I know in that situation, or friends who know friends that can't come out because of whatever circumstances they're in, or have to keep it secret, or people who are thinking about it and starting out. The only thing that I've told the individuals in my life that reflect this circumstance is to just question themselves more and really have an opportunity to speak with themselves in a very meta way in terms of, you know, there's you and then the you that perhaps you imagine yourself to be, and try to figure out what is it that you as currently need to do to be to the person that you wish to see yourself to be. And that's something that I did in therapy that helped me. And so I can only imagine and hope that it would help someone else. But it really is an individual process for everyone. And then I can just only hope that people have a space to listen to themselves. That's what I did for a couple of months when I started my transition.
How old were you, Carlie, when you?
I was 20.
20.
No, I would like to add something. I'm not a trans person, so I'm a noun, but I think based on my so many interviews I collected with the members of the trans community, you know, I realized that transitioning in a supportive environment makes a tremendous difference, you know, because think about the problems that you would face if you had been thrown out of your own home, you know, you become homeless, you know, and that becomes a huge challenge, you know. And but then it goes back to the thing that I mentioned before. Depends where you live, your social class. There are so many other elements that would play a role, you know. But again, if you don't have that, if you don't grow up, if you don't transition in a supportive environment, that becomes a challenge, you know, for a trans person.
Maybe just to follow up with that, Carlie, in your personal experience, what was the support system like for you when you began exploring this?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this question up because I thought of that too. Also, in what Flavio was saying, I think if you can't do it explicitly, there are online forums. I don't know how helpful they are, but there are online communities where you're able to talk with other people who may feel the same way you do. And if you can't do it secretly in whatever way, try to actualize what it is that you feel so that you get a taste of perhaps who you are to become. For me, my the resources that helped me when I was a teen, there was the LGBT center that I would go to in Manhattan. And even though it wasn't like about being trans, it definitely broadened my horizons in terms of accepting whatever queer identity I held at that time. And so when the time did come for me to transition, there's a community center also that I felt comfortable going to, and going to therapy, but also talking to people, and really just it was me just trying it out. I woke up one day and I felt like I was dead inside, and I didn't know how to explain it. There are no words to. And I figured, okay, well, something's wrong and I need to fix it, obviously. And so I thought about it, and when it dawned on me that I was trans, I tried experimenting for a while, and I did a genderqueer situation for a bit, and then I did a non-binary situation for a hot minute, and then eventually I was like, okay, now this is what I need to do, and I transitioned with hormones.
So we have another question here, and it relates to family. So given that both of you are from Latino contexts, Brazil, El Salvador United States, but through an immigrant family from El Salvador. And given that in those contexts, family is paramount in one's expression and one's support system and one's survival, how do you negotiate between your family and, say, chosen family, either because of gender, sexuality that creates other families, or because you've left your home, in the case, say, of Flavio?
You talk in terms of my family, it was a challenge for my family, because when I came out, they thought I was doing it because I want to harm them. I want to hurt them somehow. And they actually, we never understood each other. I don't think that I was really upfront with them, but I don't think I actually could have that kind of conversation with them in a way that they could understand me, because they always saw it as, as me trying to hurt them, and so I left my family. I didn't talk to my entire family for 2 years, and it was actually on Facebook that we started actually talking again, and I had a great relationship with my whole family today, but it was a challenge at that time, because especially when I was in the Navy, Brazilian Navy, for many years, for 6.5 years, and it was a great source of pride, and for someone like in my case, poor, young boy, going to the military, so I would have a stable job, and but all of a sudden I did something wrong, and then and then you deserve to be thrown out because they found out you are gay, and you deserve it. You see, shame on you, and then I thought, something, I don't need it, and so I didn't talk to my family for a while, and then maybe through the Facebook, and we initiated again. And today we are very close. My family and my brother and two sisters, we are so close, and with my mom as well, and so it was not an easy process, but again, this is what happened to me. It's such a unique story that I don't know if I can. It was a very unique experience.
Is your family still in Brazil, or are any of them here?
No, they are all in Brazil, and again, and the Facebook is so interesting, because actually the Facebook actually brought us back closer. We're so much closer today. I was just talking to my sister like a few hours ago, just like I'm speaking with you, and it was so cool, and all my nieces and nephews, and we can catch up on social media now. It's amazing, and that today they actually they see me differently, and we know it's interesting, because my mom called me my mom is a woman who didn't talk to me for a few years, And then the other day she called me and I said, like, you know something, I have something to tell you. I have big news. And I was like, okay, what's the big news? I'm like, and now guess what? Your nephew came out. And I was like, oh, okay. And guess what I did? And then I was like, oh my God, she probably like beat the shit out of him, right? And then she's like, I bought a cake to celebrate. This is how far that my family came to, from not hating me, but to actually cutting all the relationship, all the connections, to now embracing me the way they are doing, and so anyway, they bought a cake to celebrate. There is a reason to celebrate. My nephew came out as a gay man, so it's interesting.
That's a wonderful story because it gives us hope that people can change. And
yeah, and I think people can change, but also there is another element when you see that they are very proud as well. Everything can be joined, and back in Brazil, and now I wrote the book, and I came to, and my whole story, and they're very proud, my brothers and sisters and my mom, and so I'm glad that I got them back because I love them.
Carlie, do you want to add to this question about family and chosen family and things?
I'm just switching audio if I sound okay. I think
your face is gone. There you are.
I think for me, there's room for both. I don't think that chosen family or just blood family conflicts with each other, and I have a very I don't know, I fight for things, and so I've fought very hard for the love of both my chosen family and my immediate family that I was born into, and it worked. There was a time where I couldn't talk about dating with my mom, or just things that were going on in my life that were very new to me, and I didn't know how to deal with them. And there's an essence of having to redefine yourself in terms of defining yourself as a woman, right? So what kind of woman are you going to be in the world, and what kind of experiences are you going through suddenly? And just a lot of that I wasn't able to go to, let's say my mom for some time, but there were other people that I was able to go to help me get through that. But eventually they just sort of merged, and I think I just did that by just telling my mom everything she didn't want to hear. So if she didn't want to know about me dating or what I was doing, what club I was going to, what did I do at night, what kind of things did I see, I would just tell her. It was like, okay, you want to know about me? Well, I'll tell you about my world, and you'll one day eventually get to know me, and it worked.
I'm just wondering, I have a question for Carlie, because I'm just wondering how your mom she saw the film, right? So so how was it,
Oh yeah, we haven't talked since she saw it. We haven't talked. Wait, did I tell you? No, right?
No, it didn't.
No. Okay, well, she sat down, she watched it. It was very awkward. Wait, the Q&A people have seen it, right? Richard?
Yes, they have.
Yeah, okay. So it was very awkward, as all of you could probably imagine, to have your mom like a few feet away from you and you're like doing sexy time on screen. So that was very awkward, Flavio. I just left. I was like, I'll come back later. You do what you're doing. And so at the end, she just she was crying. I think I saw a tear in her eye, and I was like, oh my God, are you crying? Because my mom isn't someone who cries like that. She's very tough. And she just said, I'm just so worried for you, and this is why you shouldn't go out at night. And I get worried about you. And she just hugged me, and we both just were laughing. I was laughing just because of the moment, and she was laughing, laugh crying.
Beautiful moment, I think.
Yeah. She saw it, and then it's been great. So thanks. You made a movie that she'll actually watch.
We have another personal question, and then a couple questions related to the film as we sort of wind down our conversation. But what is more challenging for you, to navigate the world as a Latino or Latina, or to navigate the world as a gay man or a trans woman?
What's the easiest, or what I mean? What the question? I'm sorry.
What is more challenging for you
Oh,
to navigate the world as?
I don't see it in those terms. I don't see challenge. I just don't. And I just don't. And actually, I see it not as a challenge. Actually, the other way around. I see it something like makes me like different than others in a positive way. And so I just happen to be different. I'm Latino. I have an accent. And maybe the color of my skin, or because I'm a gay man. And I don't see it. Actually, it's easy because I was in politics for many years, and in politics I did see the difference, the way people treated me, but not actually in the film business. In the film business, the other way around, that becomes like gives a little flavor, you know what I mean? Like, oh, if he's a foreigner Latino, he must be good, and that's how people see it, and I think I'm more respected in the film business than I was when I was in politics. And so I love it. So today, to answer your question, I don't see it as a challenge.
What about you, Carlie?
Okay, sorry, by the way, if you see me, my screen between dying headphones, just so you guys don't hear the iPad audio. I feel the same way as Flavio. I don't see it as a challenge. I see it as a boon. But even then, I don't even think of either identities. I mean, it's something that has to do more with anxiety, being trans, and that's more like passing, not passing, whatever the word is for whatever that sort of experience is. But I think for me, the more obstacle comes into navigating the world is with someone who has all these ideas, and I want to do all these things, and self-doubt and all these swirling emotions. To me, it becomes so much more difficult to navigate, and in terms of how I feel different, it's like is everyone else out here like this? Is everyone else going from extreme highs to extreme lows sometimes, and trying to still be successful in however you define that, and be productive. At no point on my list is being Latina or being trans part of that. It's more so like just personal attributes of myself, and then pushing myself and being very self-critical. That is what's stopping me.
Well, thank you. Those are very affirming answers. We have a couple questions related to the film. One of them is about Tina's glasses in the film, because they're quite they're quite distinctive. And the question is, why did you decide to have her character wear those very distinctive glasses?
Actually, it was actually Carlie's glasses,
I need them to see.
yeah, and I thought that would go well with the character. Because, by the way, Carlie is Tina and Tina is Carlie, actually. So when I actually interviewed Carlie, and then I thought like, she's perfect, she's perfect. And so the glasses was just like, I don't think it was, but at one point the glasses broke, right, Carlie?
I lost them. I think I lost them.
And then we have to
wardrobe lost them. Wardrobe lost them. It wasn't
then
me.
we have to go on. I have to go on eBay and I get the glass that looked exact like the same, but it was not quite similar. But I think people can't notice it.
I didn't notice the difference.
I'm laughing over here because whoever asked that, I hope you're laughing for what I'm about to do next. You may see me like go like this and whatnot during this call, and the only reason why is because I abstained from wearing my glasses so that there wasn't too much like overlap. And there's something that I've had to remind myself now in like interviews, because I actually do wear glasses to see it, and so I'm trying to be very cognizant of not wearing glasses with anything that has to do with the film industry. Thank you, Flavio, for forever ruining glasses for me.
On the contrary, I think you've started a new fashion trend, Carlie.
Yeah. And I love those glasses, the big black bold, and I love them,
So we have another question. They're related to the relationship between Tina and her grandmother. The questioner comments about that it's such a unique relationship, and yet it's the center of the story in many ways, and asking sort of why center the story around that relationship. And then related to that, when Tina's friend tells her grandmother, the question isn't why, but is she happy, as a very powerful moment. And so I wondered if you could talk maybe about the dynamic and the importance of the dynamic between the grandmother and Tina.
Carlie? You want me to go?
All right, fine. I'll go. Well, yeah, I think you'd be better pressed for talking about Miriam, but yeah, I'll give it my shot. You know the mastermind behind all of it. I think that, like we said in the beginning of this conversation Q&A, it's very emblematic of what anyone who is trans, or I would assume, would go through, just from my own personal experience and many of the people, men and women that I know for me certainly is something that it has been a learning process for my family, both, mother and immediate, extended family. But in the same way, my own grandmother had sort of the same road, and I've only shared the story once, so Flavia sort of knows it, but with my grandmother, she had that aha moment too when I sat her down. She's 92, she's gonna be 92 in January, so yay, grandma. I sat her down. Yeah, I know, right? She's gonna be 92. I sat her down and I was like, listen, grandma, like, I'm trans, this is what's up, my name is Carlie now, yada yada yada. And ever since then, this is like, I don't know, so, however many years ago, almost 10 years, or going on near 10 years. And she was like, okay, cool. And she said, your life is going to be very hard. 1, because you're a woman, and 2, because you're trans. And that was all she had to say about it. She had the aha moment, just like Tina's abuela. And then ever since then, she understood it. And she's one of the first and only, the first people who consistently called me by my name. So it's a very parallel to Tina's abuela, which was interesting in terms of how that happened.
Thank you for
story. When I was putting the story together, I wanted to make sure that we have the family element on it, so that people don't think that, those people come out of nowhere and they became trans. They don't know nothing about the family, the background. So I thought that would be interesting, but also because I think the journey that a parent has to go through when a child is transitioning is often left out in most films. And so I thought it would be interesting to have it on the film. And but there are different, the power dynamic between both women, and from different generations. Actually, it became a sort of a nice complications, that that I thought was interesting for my audience to learn, and so they don't just learn about Tina as a trans woman, but also her relationship with her family, which I think it's very unique, very special, and that's why I thought it was important to have it on the film. Yeah, I don't know if I answered the question the way properly, but
I also love that there's scenes of them cooking together, which I find sort of wholesome and
yeah, all those things that makes the characters, both of them, more human. We tried, and that was the whole idea behind it, and even like things when they disagreed. For example, Tina wants to stay in America because that's the only country she knew, and the grandma she wanted to go back to Mexico, and those little things, the definition of home, for each of them was different, but at the end they loved each other, right? And that was very clear in the film. And yeah.
So I want to talk about the end of the film. A lot of people are sort of taken a bit by surprise at the violence at the end of the film. And I wonder, if there's a couple parts to this question. Carlie, how difficult was that for you to participate in? Um, and Flavio and Carlie, how with an ending or with an ending to Tina's story so violent, where do we find hope?
Actually, it's up to my audience, and I give this is the task for them, and I'm an activist. I believe that the best way to change things is just we have to actually talk about those problems, because and um, I um, I believe that the best way to approach something is just by facing the problem, um, and sometimes shining a light on a specific issue is the first step toward affecting change. And that's with that in mind, I made this film. But also I was very concerned, because okay, how my audience gonna see it now? I'm killing a trans woman, and is any way we can do come up with a more uplifting type of ending? So that was my question in the beginning. But today I cannot see the film with different ending. When you see that how vulnerable those lives are, and the assumption of safety is a privilege that women just like Carlie just don't have, you know, and um, and this also goes back to something that actually Vanna Black, the other actress, told me on set. It was very late at night, and we were just chatting, we almost done with the shoot, and she told me something that I'll never forget, which was every time I leave my home, I don't know if I'll come back, Not a single day goes by that I don't think about those words, and because we take for granted a lot that safety is gonna be there, that now I'm gonna open my door, I'm gonna be outside, and the day is beautiful, and then I'm gonna have fun. Whatever I have to do, I'll get it done. I'll come back home. That might not be the case for a trans woman or trans man, and with that in mind, we made this film, and we thought was important to have it there, more now than before,
What was your experience with that ending, Carla?
Hearing Flavio talk, I just have tears in my eyes just because of the circumstance of Tina's story. I forget, even when my mom watched it, and I told my best friend to watch it too, and I didn't tell him the ending. I forget what the movie is about in terms of what happens, and then it's just a movie I'm in, and then I forget everything that's there, and so it's all coming back to me. But one, I would start with by saying I agree with Flavio that I would have never done this film if the ending wasn't that. That was the ending that I read in the original script, and the only ending that I would accept for the film, and so I think it was perfect. It was a story that Tina needed, and it was the ending that fit that specific story, that specific narrative. And then jumping off of that, I will answer your question, but I did want to point out that there is a lot of criticism with the ending, and whether it be individual people or actual publications that take offense to Flavio being cis or the writer John being cis and having this ending, and perhaps even in the times of Disclosure, and how Disclosure, by Lover and Cox on Netflix, talks about how a lot of trans films do end in this way, and it's sort of like trauma porn, et cetera, et cetera. And with that pretext being said, I think that it should be noted and pointed out that Flavio worked, has interacted with maybe more than 50 trans men and women. And the sum of all of our experiences and all of our input is this movie. So a little bit of all of us is in this. Amanda, who plays Lily, wrote her own speech. So a little bit of all of us goes into each of our scenes. I know I brought my own little thing to Tina, and Ivana brought her thing to her character. I think that the ending that they give to Tina is something that needed to be done. I saw it as a sort of, you know, honor or some sort of way to pay respect and remembrance to all the women and men that have lost their lives in that specific way. And you know, one side is that it's good that it happened in this movie in this way, because it's imaginary, you know, it's fake. It was a story. It was a character in a story that died, and as opposed to a real human being that had to die in reality, for the message to get across that is that we are being killed, we are in harm's way, we are more endangered, especially those not just trans but specifically trans women of color, any queer person who's of color, you know, and as you know, the minority sort of experience keeps extrapolating, right? So you have undocumented, you have, you know, Latinx, you have trans, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe, you know, you're not making above a certain income level. You're more and more prone to danger. And I think this is a wake-up call in terms of the movie and the times we live in now, to take care of people who do exist on these different planes, because just because of who you are, who you want to be, doesn't warrant your death, basically. Sorry, that was a lot.
No, thank you. I think the ending is, as both of you say, it fits the arc of the narrative. And I think it's particularly powerful and disturbing for people because they've developed such a relationship with Tina and her process, right? Because the film humanizes her process, the relationship with the grandmother. I mean, I think there's a lot of emotional investment, and then it's suddenly sort of snatched from you. But I think that's the process of awareness that people have to go through. And actually, we have a comment to that. It's not a question, but a statement, that I appreciated the way the film depicted the harsh realities and dangerous conditions trans people face. It was honest and gruesome and beautifully done. So kudos.
No, thank you. You know, and you know, I've interviewed over 100 people. We interviewed, you know, while I was doing the research, and it was interesting because you know, the violence keep coming back. You know, all those interviews. You know, so I thought that at one point, you know, that I don't think I should be directing this film if I could not honor the material I had. You know, it's just like if one of them had started talking to me about the violence, I was like, oh, you know something, I don't want to hear that. Let's give me the good stuff. Tell me the good things, you know, because that's what I want to have in my film, because that's what my audience wants to hear. It's not that's the way I operate, you know, because again, I'm an activist, you know, so I believe by talking, again, you know, and putting the finger what the problem is the best way to address the problem. Now, it's a call to action type of film. It's not an easy film to watch, I understand that, but it's an important film. It's a necessary story to tell, you know, and that's how I saw it, you know.
Well, I'm grateful for both of you for bringing us this story. As we wind down our conversation, I wonder if you'd like to talk about other projects you're working on. I know, Carlie, I read in an interview you are studying computer science and AI and textile stuff, which I found fascinating. But I wonder if you can maybe speak to current projects that you're both working on.
Yeah, I'm finishing my degree in computer science, and at the same time, I'm working on a project that Flavio mentored me in terms of finding financial support for it. It's called M for T, and it comes from when Craigslist was back and poppin', when people used to meet people on Craigslist. And so it talks about visibility in the trans community. And it's a redefinition of female archetypes by a trans person. And then, no, it's a photographic series. So it's 9 portraits that are portrayed in public spaces in Jamaica, Queens.
Oh, wonderful. Is there a website that people could check it out if they can't get to?
Yeah, it's www. and then first name Carlie and then my last name Guevara @ .com.
What else are you working on, Carlie?
Aside from that, on my own time, I'm troubleshooting a play that is more of the comp sci stuff, that's written by an algorithm.
I really hope that the Carlie can find an agent who can take her to Hollywood and make a big, because first you are beautiful, Carlie, you're so talented, and there are a lot of charisma, there are a lot of,
What did you say?
There are a lot of, you have a lot of charisma.
Now before that?
No, I know. I don't know what it said. No, did I say anything bad? Did you say anything?
We recorded it. You can listen to it on loop.
But I think I really hope that you can shine. I really hope that you can remember me later on. Like the first guy that I worked with, that little director, that crazy, but it was an amazing experience to work with you on set. Now I see you shining on the big screen, everywhere. Your face, actually, Carlie's face is everywhere in the subway in New York City. Subway, buses, subway platforms. Your face, Carlie, is everywhere. You can't escape it. There are thousands of posters everywhere in New York City. So I'm so glad to see you everywhere. And it's my little baby. I feel that you are like my daughter.
Likewise, so much love. And I used one of those posters for my audition tape for Pose season 3. So let's hope it all works out.
I hope you get it. Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's wonderful.
And Flavio has a movie. I don't know if you're going to talk about it. Are you?
I'm sorry?
Are you going to talk about your movie? Your next movie?
I have 3 films on in the pipeline. So I don't know which one is going to be my next project, but it's just like I don't know. Now that I finished this film, I feel that I need a break. I would take off for I don't know. I need take I don't know 6 months break before I start a new project. But the way actually I work is just like I first have to fall in love with the project, because keep in mind that I'm going to be working on the next project for the next 5 to 7 years. So I really have to be in love with it. And so I'm taking the time now to decide which one is going to be my next baby.
Carl, so if Flavio spent about 6 years on this project, how long was your involvement, Carlie?
I joined 2016.
2016.
Was it 2016?
Yeah.
I joined in. I think I auditioned May, somewhere between March to May of 2016 is when I auditioned.
Well, I want to thank both of you for your time this evening to talk about the film and your lives and your experiences. I think this has been enlightening, and I have certainly enjoyed it. And I thank you both for this wonderful film.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Each twice now, so that's fantastic.
Wow.
And I wish you both luck, both with this film and its continued reception on the film festival circuit and on the awards circuit. And Carlie, I look forward to more things from you, as well as Flavio. And I will give you a chance to say any last things you'd like to say to our audience. And
well, I'm just saying quickly here that everyone that watched the film, I would love you guys to go to IMDb and rate our film on IMDb. I keep saying that because it's so important, So everyone listening to me right now, please, please, please go to IMDb and look for The Garden Left Behind and rate our film. The same thing goes to Rotten Tomatoes. Go to Rotten Tomatoes, look for our film and rate our film. Those are little things, but it makes a huge difference, So thank you so much for watching the film. I hope you liked it. Thank you.
Absolutely. Carlie, any last words?
Same thing what Flavio said, listening to Flavio. And then my own thing would just be thank you. Thank you for being a part of this and for having interest. I know that there are things in your, things that happen in school that are just so cool, and you never know where you'll end up. And so thanks for doing this.
Well, on that note of inspiration, thank you both. It's been a pleasure to talk to both of you, and I hope our paths cross again, either virtually or in person.
Yes, anytime.
Likewise.
All right.
Thank you, Richard.
It's been a pleasure.